My name is Tiffany Klein, and I'm with Lifelong Learning Incorporated, and this is my Bridging the Gap presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the roles that different groups play within the innovation of technology and the incorporation, as well as ways to work with these different groups, and touching base a little bit on what the importance of some Christ-led leadership. These are our role descriptions, our different roles that exist in the instructional design, bridging the gap. These are our innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Our innovators are our risk takers. They're venturesome. They're willing to try new products at some risk. They are our first 2.5% of users or purchasers in the market. They are the first to use the new products. They tend to be younger people willing to spend more than normal sums of money for a product if it is something that they have to purchase. They take pride in being the first among their peers to own a particular new product or use, in this case, a new software, a new technological advance. They are opinion leaders within their reference group. They derive much of their social status from the innovator role, and they actively seek new products to help them in their pursuit. These are your first step. These are the first people to go out there and try something and say, yeah, this is worth a try. Your early adopters are guided by respect. They are also opinion leaders in their communities. They adopt new products early but also carefully. They make up 13.5% of total purchases or usage in the market. Their goal is to find better solutions to their problems. They don't move as quickly as innovators, but still try new products early in the life cycle without waiting for people to necessarily accept it. They're reasonably affluent. They want to be among the first to purchase, but they're not as anxious to be the first purchaser as the innovators, and they don't necessarily actively seek new products to the extent of the innovators. Your early majority are deliberated. They are rarely leaders, but they adopt new products before the average person. They account for the first or the next 34% to enter the market. They're distinctly different than innovators and early adopters, so we break off from those first two and we get into our early majority. They look to the innovators and early adopters for buying cues. If it is working for them and it's going well, then that gives them the cue of this is okay. They are a little bit more price sensitive in terms of purchasing. They adopt the product only after it's been widely accepted. They also perceive a little more risk in new products than the first two groups. And a big thing to consider with this group is due to the group being so large, it decides whether the product will succeed in general use or serve a more narrow market. In terms of technology, if this is something that serves a general good and a general crowd and the majority, then it will more likely serve a wider market versus a narrow market. Next, your late majority, they're a lot more skeptical. They adopt an innovation only after a majority of people have tried it. They comprise another 34% of the market. They see even more risk in new products than the early majority and tend to be quite conservative and skeptical of new products. Although at this point you can hardly consider it new due to it being around for so long. You've already worked your way through 3 groups, and this is number 4, and that's a large time frame to consider something still new, and that can go from months to years by the time it hits to our late majority. They also tend to be very price sensitive and are generally unwilling to buy until they are convinced that the price is at its lowest point, or in terms of technology, that this technology is to the best point that it's going to get and will be worth the usage, the money, whatever it is that they have to put into it. They also don't necessarily view these products in the life cycle like we do with our statistics. Finally, we hit our laggards, who are our traditional bound group. They are suspicious only when it's become something of a tradition itself. This is our last group of buyers who make up the last 16% of the market. These are individuals, households, organizations that refuse to buy the new product. They have a very distinguished characteristic of the fact that they have highly traditional buying patterns. They are likely to wait until they are sure a product has been accepted. These are your last to the party, want to make sure everything's okay with it. It's most of the time comprised of older people with lower incomes, and the buying power isn't necessarily the main reason laggards are so cautious. They're tied to the past. It's like the phrase, if it's not broke, we don't fix it. They can usually be timid by nature, but it's not necessarily why they reject on innovation either. Some products ultimately just end up being of little interest to this group. Certain customers, they don't need it, or it's too expensive, or it's just not something that interests them at all. So just some important notes to take into consideration with all of these groups is that categories of adopters can be different from product to product. One thing that might work super, super well and be super useful for somebody could be completely useless to the next. And then people also differ depending on their attitude, beliefs, income, and lifestyles. So using these groups to your advantage, your utilization of innovators and early adopters, these these are your risk takers. They can provide relevant feedback of something that's been designed, technology that's been designed. They can boost the reputation of the brand and product. They're the ones to send out and say, hey, I know you're willing to try this, and go and advertise and put them out there using the software or the technology that's been designed. They have a better average social status, and they can help spread the word and acceptance quicker. They're your face of putting your stuff out there, technology, training programs, whatever it is that is being used and put out there. Now, in terms of working with the late majority and the laggards and putting them to use, it can be important working with them to design with their reservations in mind. They're your skeptics, so take into consideration the tradition bound and how they would think about it, and maybe how to incorporate those things or to introduce it in a way that would make them feel comfortable. You can look for where other designs have gone wrong. Understand that they do play an important role. That's a big thing. Find the competitive advantage of being late to the game. There's a competitive advantage of saying, I know that this is the best it can be, and build from there. See what the best point of angle is for that specific technology, software, whatever it is. Keep an eye on the canary in the coal mine, that silent killer that might take you down within these groups that you're working with, your late majority and laggards. They can point out something that might kill off your idea, your concept, your software. View them as forecasters. If they don't like something, it's likely that the ones you're working with, that the other ones aren't going to like it as well. And fix what they think is not working. It's important to use this in terms of a leadership model through Christ. Leadership is important to God. It gives us a higher purpose than just having followers and having people that use our things. We seek to serve others and usher others toward goals ordained by God, giving them the concept of using this technology for good and making sure that they have what they need to spread this positive benefit. Leading community members to use their God-given gifts for a purpose. This is giving these innovators the purpose of going out there and putting this out there. The tradition seekers, they are keeping that tradition and growth and maturity. These are my references for my presentation. Thank you for taking the time to join me for this Bridging the Gap presentation.